Good morning, everybody. So I'm Troy Dostert, Pastor Misha's husband, and this is a really, really exciting opportunity to be sharing some of these sessions in the Rector's Forum with all of you on the religions and what we as Christians can do to try to achieve a better understanding and hopefully even an empathetic relationship with other faiths. Something that matters a lot to me personally and also intellectually. And I was struck, and actually one of the hardest things about the first two sessions was kind of sitting on the periphery and not jumping into the conversation as Father Bill was going through a lot of this material, because this is just fascinating stuff. And one thing I was struck by as I was listening to last week's session was the great challenge that we face in trying to come to terms with other faiths, worldviews that are so foreign to our own in many cases. And when we're talking about Eastern religions, this is especially the case. Part of what I hope to articulate, starting with this session this morning, is just how different the Eastern religious worldview is from the one that we're accustomed to with the Christian story. And I thought Father Bill did an excellent job with giving us a sense of some of those obstacles that we confront in trying to make this empathetic connection with the other. But I also just want to offer a couple thoughts as to why I think that this is ultimately a hopeful enterprise. Have an interesting conversation, and maybe we'll touch on this when we get to mindfulness and the way that mindfulness is being appropriated by Westerners right now with great zeal. Yoga, of course, the same kind of thing is happening, and it is sort of interesting, that a lot of people who are practitioners of yoga now are doing it for reasons of self-fulfillment rather than self-denial. And so it is odd when you have those moments. I mean, here you have a bunch of people maybe whose primary goal is not necessarily transcendence, but maybe getting fit or relieving stress or any number of valid pursuits, but not ones that really would have been foremost in the minds of the Upanishads and the writers of those texts, right? And now we have two traditions that are coming into contact here. We have the Western tradition of individualism and self-fulfillment and the Eastern tradition of self-denial. And you get those awkward moments, where you're sitting there in a pretzel position of some kind and saying, wow, this is a lot of suffering and pain, and then someone's telling you, well, no, you're not supposed to be feeling anything right now. You're supposed to be moving beyond it. Well, the reason why I'm here to begin with is because I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to, right? So what are you telling me? So yeah, these odd moments are what we get to look forward to here in this 21st century of cultural exchange. Yes? Oh, yeah.
Leave your families, leave your food, and everyone will take care of it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting parallel. It's an interesting parallel, and yet in some ways, I think one would say that while Jesus himself was a renunciant of sorts, never really asks the disciples to give up desire. Right? What the problem is wrongly ordered desire. Right? What they are supposed to desire is God. What they are supposed to desire is human fellowship on a truer, more authentic level. Right? You give up the things that will prevent you from reaching that goal, but it's not desire itself that you extinguish. And that's the rigor of the Upanishads and these hermits are essentially going out and they're trying to overcome even the most basic natural impulses, the desire to eat, the desire to sleep. Right? And so some of their self-denial involves going huge stretches of time without sleeping, practicing rigorous breathing exercises, really to kind of condition themselves to releasing all of it, right? And you never really see Jesus using quite that kind of language, right? Because love and attachment is always part of the equation, right? But it's getting rid of the bad attachments and focusing on those attachments that will lead us closer to God, right? So desire is good. It's just a question of whether it's rightly ordered. But there's certainly the rigors of Jesus' path. There's no question about it. And for people in the Vedic period who were not committed to the rigors of the Upanishads, then they're looking for another option. They're looking for hope that can be found in some other path. And that's really where we get to the essence of classical Hinduism and the story of Arjuna, which is our third text. So now I'm wondering about the time. How much time do I have? A minute. So you remember what I said earlier about how this is just impossible. There's no way we're going to get through it. And this is okay. Well, yeah, I think I can certainly introduce it and give you a sense of what's important about this story. Okay, we now get into the epic literature of classical Hinduism, which is one of the things that gives Hinduism its distinctive identity and moves us out of the Vedic period and its preoccupations into Hinduism. The epic stories are, as at the beginning here, I've got some information that I gave you in text number 3. It's we have two texts, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and these are the epic stories of classical Hinduism. They are huge, especially the Mahabharata, which is, as noted here, 15 times the size of the Bible in terms of just the quantity of what's contained in this story. And maybe we'll have Wendy Doniger, for better or worse, finish us up here with her characterization of the story. King Pandu had been cursed to die if he tried to beget children. Therefore, his wife Kunti saw to it that 5 gods gave her 5 sons, called the Pandavas. Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, Arjuna, who we'll be returning to, son of Indra, king of the gods, and we saw Indra earlier. Bhima, son of Vayu, the wind, and the twins, Sahadeva and Nakula, sons of the twin equine gods, the Ashvins. The first 3 are the sons of Kunti, the twins, the sons of Madri. All 5 of them married the same woman, Draupadi. When the eldest, Yudhishthira, lost the kingdom to his cousins in a game of dice, the stripping of Draupadi, the Pandavas and Draupadi went into exile for 12 years, at the end of which they regained their kingdom through a cataclysmic battle in which almost everyone on both sides was killed. They all went to heaven and died happily ever after. Wendy Doniger isn't beyond having a little fun and facetiousness from time to time when she talks about the Hindu tradition. But this leads us to what is essentially what has become the Bible of sorts for Hinduism, and that is the Bhagavad Gita, or otherwise known as the Song of God. That's what it literally means in English. And the Gita is really, if we have to find one holy text for understanding Hinduism, I suppose that would be it. And part of this is due to what happens in the 18th century when British administrators, colonial elites, encounter these Brahmin scholars and ask them, what is their holy book? And they say, well, we don't really have a holy book. I mean, we have a lot of scriptures, and they've accumulated over the century. But if you're going to be a great civilization, you have to have a holy book. One holy book, like we have the Bible, okay? And so they say, well, okay, it's probably the Bhagavad Gita then. So they take an excerpt from the Mahabharata, and that then becomes the text, okay? And then when it's translated into English in 1785, a guy named Charles Wilkins makes sure that he includes enough these and thous in the translation so that it's going to resemble a sacred text as the British would have understood it, right? So, okay, yes, we can understand where you guys are coming from now. And that's where we will resume, I guess, when we reconvene next week, is with the story of the Bhagavad Gita. So, more on that to come. Thanks, everybody.